Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome in 17 and some change. I'm AccuDez17. I come to bring my 2 cents on this Wednesday, on this hump day. I hope everybody out there as well as possible and everything's on the up and up for y'all. Um, so today is I lost count, but it's at least day 24. I'll probably go back at some point and get the exact number of days, but it's like day 24 at least, something like that, without the marijuanas. And, you know, uh, I still don't really miss, I don't miss smoking. There's been a few times where I have considered if um, making a return after like 100 days, not to smoking, but just to like a little bit of THC would be a decent idea. Um, I've been curious, like, is a part of my personality, is a version of myself gone without access to THC, right? Because I smoked for almost 20 years, um, there was a laid back version um, of myself that I feel existed, where I don't know if I have access to that mindset or to that level of chill um, anymore, and that's something that kind of made me think a little bit. Um, like I said last time, I'm past the point of novelty where that like happiness from like quitting has subsided, is kind of worn off, and different things like that. And I'm kind of at a point now where, well, I can really only speak. I told you some thoughts that I was having recently, but I could speak to the last couple days. Yesterday, I had to attend an all-day training um, that really felt like a hostage situation. Um, I don't like obligations. I don't like having to be in classroom settings without against my will, and learning about things that I have no interest in. And we had to do a 10-hour class yesterday, and that really grinded my gears. I just brought back a lot of, you know, dismay surrounding the fact that I am not I'm not where I need to be yet. The fact that I'm in a situation where I can be forced into these types of situations. Um, that's not, that is part of why I started my own business, right? Is it the largest part? No, but it's a pretty big part, just to be able to control your own schedule and kind of move how you want to move and stuff like that. And so I don't know if it's the training that had part to do with it, where I had to. It was on my day off too. It was on what's typically a um, a day off for me, and, 'cause, 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 Yeah, I mean it's yeah, I don't know how much of it is that or how much of it is, not having marijuanas and stuff like that. That was one thing that opened my eye that my eyes opened to. And then just the frustration with social dynamics, just and I'm as guilty as anybody else of this, but just how like people change up depending on who's around and stuff like that, and how you can have like a good connection with a small group of people, but once like another person is introduced, like that all changes. And just how people's like demeanor and attitude like switch depending on who's around, just like the general competitiveness and like jealousy and attention seeking of that categorizes um, human nature. Uh, um, that's and like I said, I'm not somebody who fits outside of that box. I'd like to see myself as like, yeah, I don't compete for any type of attention, and um, I don't have any jealousy and different things like that. But it's not the I'm not completely innocent, But so that it's frustrating. I'm frustrated at myself for that, for being human, and I'm frustrated at humanity for that. And I again, I don't know if it's like just being this far along in the quitting process, and I'm sure I'll be more optimistic at some point. Um, but I don't know how much of the lack of THC is causing my mindset to veer towards like some of this negativity. I'm seeing a lot of I'm having a tough time finding like a lot of silver linings or um, hanging on to silver linings. I feel like everywhere I look, I'm finding the universe putting barriers and just blocking my road to fulfillment and happiness. And, you know, some philosophies claim that that's an internal thing, but I'm sure it is in some extent. Like I said, mindset is powerful, but I like to extrapolate that to the furthest dimension. Like if you're living in a dungeon, shackled to a dungeon, and you're not having meals, is happiness a mindset in that point? And I know that's couldn't be further from the case. Like we live in a prosperous country, a first world country, and we have freedoms that so many people don't have. Um, and we need to be grateful for them and stuff like that. But like I said, there's something that's just something's making me focus or not be able to avoid the feeling of just looking at dead ends. Like the road to happiness is clearly envisionable for me. Like I know what success would look like for me. I know what fulfillment would look like for me. I know what happiness would look like for me. But it just seems like in every direction, there's something in the way. And like I said, just the way kind of social dynamics, the way that group dynamics work nowadays, or just in general, um, and the state of the union, the state of the nation, the state of society, and yeah. So I don't know. I'm hoping that lamenting on these things here and now kind of turns that tide a little bit. Um, I I keep hearing Elon Musk in the back of my head. There's an interview where they bring to his attention a lot of things that are going wrong, and he's just he looks saddened by the news, but he says simply like, "I didn't know," and we'll work harder. And like I keep hearing that, like, we'll work harder, and but it's like I know people. There are some people out there. They work themselves into the ground, and they never get the break that they're looking for. They never get. But I also know you're not supposed to lose hope, because if you do, then that's definitely not gonna really come your way, unless you hit a lottery or something like that. And so um, we had in our neck of the woods, we had yellowish orange skies today, and I was I was kind of enjoying it a little bit, and I thought it kind of looked cool. It kind of looked surreal and stuff like that. But apparently, it's from wildfires in Canada, and it's really affecting the air quality and things like that. And so once I knew that, um, it just kind of fed back into that dystopian loop, that I'm trying to shake myself out of. You know, it's just one of those things. You're like, oh, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough freedom. I don't have the relationships I want. I don't have uh, enough time because I'm only getting older, and this and this and this. Um, and I'm sure like a lot of people out there kind of feel the same way. You know what I mean? And you keep writing your mindset. You keep trying to go back to the things you're appreciative of, and you keep practicing radical acceptance, and you keep working your ass off, and you keep growing, and you keep, ignoring the things that upset you, trying to, and stuff like that. And you keep telling yourself it's the climb. But at the end of the day, it still feels like you're syphilis. Um, that guy who just pushes a boulder up the hill forever. you know. Um, um, so we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see. Tomorrow's always a new day and stuff like that. And I like the phrase that this too shall pass, because it's not something I only tell myself and my clients. That's another thing. Even on my clients, like everybody looked down and depressed today. Um, but like one of the things I do like to remind myself of is this too shall pass. Um, and that's not only when you're down and out, but that also includes when you're really high. You know what I mean? Like when you're really proud and confident and stuff like that. Um, you know that's unsustainable, and you know it's temporary, and all moods are temporary. So just kind of waiting for this to pass, waiting for, like I said, I don't know how much of it has to do with like the lack of dopamine, um, because of the lack of THC, or how much of it has to do with like real life situations, how much of it has to do with like my perception, what I'm choosing to focus on, how I'm failing to uh, be appreciative of different things. But it's not cool. It's not, it hasn't been the funnest couple. It hasn't been the funnest few days of my life. Well, couple days of my life. See, that's the thing. Just like not yesterday, but the day before, I actually finished a project, and I was actually really happy. Um, and I had a lot of dopamine in my system. So um, yeah, I just figured I'd kind of lament about that because I didn't want to. I don't really have a poker face. I'm not a fake. I'm not a phony. And I didn't want to come on here and try to be like, oh, well, and like try to like lecture and try to like, be try to pretend I'm happy, try to like lecture and different stuff like that. Um, um, but you know, with all that being said, I did. I'll so with all that being said, I did actually um I worked for hours to put together official policy positions for the way of Ecudes. I There's a short on this channel that explains how we've changed the name of the website from ecudes17.com to thewayoфecudes.com. And I've put out official policy positions for the company where we stand. And it's funny. I sit here and I lament about how I am not where I want to be in life. And then I turn around and say, hey, follow the way of Ecudes. Um, but and this like, how could I follow? How do we follow somebody who doesn't seem to have everything figured out? How do we, right? You want to follow somebody that does have everything figured out, that does seem happy all the time, that life is working for that person. Um, but I don't know. I think there's an authenticity that comes with the honesty that I bring to the table. I've never claimed to have everything figured out. Um, and I think that brings me closer to a human level. Um, I've only claimed curiosity, um, and authenticity. So um, I think I have. I think there is value. Of course, I think there's value to what my company is bringing to the table, and I wouldn't be continuously um, betting on it and investing on it, um, if I didn't believe at the deepest parts of myself that um, do you know the way? If I didn't believe in the deepest parts of myself that there is something to um, my vision, something to the framework that I look at life through. Um, Something to the entire endeavor of Ecudes Ventures, right? Um, and these are topics that have been really long thought out, um, and stuff like that. Um, it's not something that I just woke up one day and I was like, yeah, this is my opinion on X, Y, and Z. There are 22. Um, we came out with 22 separate areas, of 22 of like the most major political, uh, not controversies, but um, stances, um, issues, and we've planted a flag in the ground. We've made an official position for all of them. You could find, on my Instagram, which would be Ecudes17. You could find on our website, which would be again the way of Ecudes and stuff like that. Um, .com, right? So one of the things too, something I wanted to warn you guys about, and one of the things that caught my attention and goes on the negative basket. Um, Recently, I've always had like an itch or a calling towards like, becoming a police officer and trying to be like a hero of sorts. And I think there are aspects of that job that I would do really well, you know. But something that came to my attention while I was, I was kind of hyper focused on it. I kind of really put myself in the shoes for a few days for like 72 hours in a row. And I was getting really kind of excited, to say the least. I was like, yeah, I'm finally at a point in my life where I've quit all the bad things, and I'm finally ready to do something like this. And no, I don't think so. They I wanted to warn you. I found out like they go through like your entire like digital footprint and stuff like that. And then I started getting paranoid. I started catastrophizing. I'm like, oh, they're gonna find out I fucking bought weed, and then I'm gonna go to jail, and different shit like that. And they're gonna watch my podcast, and they're gonna see my political posts on Facebook. Uh, and it did bring to my attention like a lot of the stuff that you do on the internet stays on the internet like forever, you know. So, and who knows, someday if I ever do become successful, like any obscure thing that I say in any one of these podcasts could be pulled out and used like against me. um and so, if unless you know the risks, you know, the internet is forever. And kind of remember that as you go through social media, and as you go through life, and as you do like OnlyFans and different stuff like that, um though most of my audience are guys, so most of them aren't doing OnlyFans and stuff like that, but you get the picture, you know. um then I thought about it more. I was like, yeah, I can't stand bureaucracy. I can't stand having to be like in places that I don't want to be. I can't stand like scrutiny. I don't like scrutiny. I don't like answering for my decisions. Um, because I often feel like the person asking me, like, they don't know, like they weren't in my shoes, like they weren't there. They weren't in my head. They weren't feeling what I was feeling. So I don't like answering to them, to anybody. And it's like they don't know what it's like. You know what I mean? Um, so, like I said, there are a lot of qualities that I have that would make me really good and would make me far above average on different responses. Like there are calls that I would go to that I would be far superior than officers, where like I have a background in addiction and addiction counseling, and I have a background in mental health counseling, and mental health, and I listen, I empathetically listen, and I'm good at like understanding where people are coming from, deciphering between like authenticity and manipulation. I'm really good at that. And I've on the physical side, like I've grappled for years, and I feel like the physical aspect, the hands on, if I ever had to go hands on, I would be capable of doing that as well. And driving at high speeds doesn't bother me. Like the adrenaline wakes me up. Um, I actually I don't run from like chaos or like loud wild shit happening. I actually it intrigues me. Like I run towards it. You know, like I don't typically I don't run from danger. I run towards it. Um, but I don't know. I've never seen like like terrific terrible horrific wrecks where like people are like just dismembered and shit like that, and you're finding like a face on the ground. And like this shit, like the shit these people go through, like cops go through, is crazy. Like they see like more traumatic shit in like a year than people see in their lifetime, right? With all the death that they have to encounter and stuff like that. And you gotta, like I've said before, like you gotta be gentle enough to help like the old lady cross the street proverbially, um, but rough enough to look killers in the eyes and not back down, right? It's there's a very large spectrum there, and their hours are screwed. Like they don't get consistent hours, they don't get consistent sleep. They have to report everything to their like they're always under constant review, by judges, by the public, and by their supervisors. Everything they do is recorded, which is great for civilians, but it's not great if you don't like scrutiny. Um, I found out even a lot of them have like bathroom issues because just the nature of like the gear that they wear, the diets that they're forced into, the unpredictability of like when their next call is coming, where it's going, how long they have to be there, and stuff like that. Um, so it's not something that's ever really thought about or discussed in the real world, but like within the profession, like it's of emergency responders, it's like yeah, like that's actually an issue. Like and that could cause stress, and like I don't think I really have the temperament for it and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, guys, like be careful what you post if you don't want that shit on your permanent record. Everything online is permanent. And I wanted to leave off with the fact that Grok and GPT just made another more updates to their software and stuff, and they've just gotten a little bit better. And I could kind of speak to that. It seems like there's been a few times where, like, I'm working on a project and I'm using AI as a tool, and I'm running into uh, a dead end. I know we were talking about dead ends earlier. Well, we were talking about roadblocks earlier, not dead ends. But yeah, I would get to like a bottleneck where I'm like, okay. So before it was in um, image generation, right? Because I'm trying to storyboard some of the episodes that I've I've written for. uh, my superhero universe, which will still be dropped uh, in due time. But the AI was just not good enough to like consistently create the type of imagery that I needed, and then it just opened up when I got to like some of the harder images, and I got stuck. It just opened up, and it had an update, and then the consistency was great. They fixed the hands, different stuff like that. Mainly character consistency. Um, I was like I said in the past, I was using very obscure uh, AI platforms that were dedicated to character consistency before mainstream AI was able to do that, and it wasn't the same. But now on the mainstream, you show it a character, and it can do like 10 photos and keep the uh, same character features and stuff like that. And then most recently, I'm trying to um, okay, this was actually only a few days ago, right? I was um, having a back and forth with GPT for 4 or 5 hours um, to come up with my just having it ask me questions and clarifying questions and just probing and stuff like that. Um, and then organizing my answers and things like that. So after like 4 or 5 hours of this sort of thing, I was like, all right, now turn everything that we have into infographics, and it wasn't able to do it. It was way too many bullet points and stuff like that. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna give it a rest for a day. Come back to it tomorrow. Maybe do it one at a time. Maybe do some copy and paste, and then have it. But by the time I got back to it, there had been an update, and then it just blew it out for me. So that was good. Um, I still gotta post those. I'll probably post those tonight on IG. And then within the next few days, I'll put it up on my site. Um, and then speaking of AI, I guess there was an issue in Atlanta with Waymo cars where they thought like a cul-de-sac was like their charging station. So like Waymo cars just kept going there like all day. Um, and then there was another issue where like a few cars got stuck in like a parking lot and they got confused. And Waymo is the driverless AI cars, so like a few of them got stuck in a parking lot and like started beeping at each other and stuff like that, like all night. So that was pretty interesting. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna drop it there. Thank you for tuning in, for spending your time. Though, you know, that's usually something you say. Uh, I mean, it's yeah. Hopefully, it was worth it, eh? Um, but yeah, no, I hope everybody out there does well. Until next time. Okay. Goodbye.